Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York, blind. Now, I am heading to the meeting with Torque, which seems to be a culminating point of some sorts for the story, so I'm pretty sure the ending must be approaching rather fast. You turn and make your way to the bar. The door closes behind you and Kaiser's limo starts moving again. You hope your companions won't have to pay too high of a price for helping you. So let's go. The Solids and Stripes is pretty much abandoned tonight, with only the bartender and one bleary-eyed local watching an old Bogart movie on the bar screen. As you ask to use the phone, and call Sophie first. Yes? So what's the plan? I'm here. What's the plan? We're on our way. Notify Torque if he's not there. We need to talk as soon as possible and move quickly. She hangs up. You tell the bartender to notify Torque, just like the Anarchs mentioned you should. The man makes a short call. You only hear somebody picking up, but no words are exchanged. The owner's on his way right now. Can I get you anything while you're waiting? Do you serve the special stuff? The bartender raises an eyebrow. The special reserve, you mean? Sorry, I can only serve that to a narrow selection of the owner's friends. Well, to be honest, using presents to get some blood seems like it doesn't make much sense, because obviously it would use up some blood to activate it in the first place. So it's like I spend it to then regain it, so in the end the net effect is still nothing. It's been a rough night, give me a break. Just a sip. I don't know, I really shouldn't. What the hell. You really look like you do need it. He takes out a bottle from a safe behind the counter and pours a bit of brown liquid into a glass. It's whiskey. There, enjoy. Your disappointment is palpable. At least the smell is nice. Torque comes in 10 minutes later without Mia. He tips his hat to you, puts a hand on the bleary-eyed patron's shoulder, and says something to him under his breath. They both laugh. But that's interesting that the special reserve, is a mortal drink, because obviously Torque cannot drink it, right? Vampires, as I said, they cannot hold down mortal food. Like, if they ingest anything other than blood, they will vomit it up soon afterwards. Marty, how's the night going? Quiet, sir. Just how you like it, huh? Torque notices the untouched glass with a bit of whiskey in it that you persuaded the bartender to pour. For me, you shouldn't have. He takes the glass and drinks the liquid, moving it around his mouth before swallowing. He looks you in the eye. Sure, I won't keep it in forever, but the night where I don't enjoy the taste of good whiskey is the night when I will truly consider myself damned. Okay, so maybe there is some way for them to hold on to mortal food and drinks, some way. I was under the impression it can't be done, but maybe it's dependent on their humanity, or maybe there are some powers that can help with that. Well, Matt, I believe you wanted me here for a reason. Let's hear it. You're about to tell him what brought you here when the door of the bar opens and Sophie walks in, all splendor and charisma. The patron's eyes are now glued to her, and so are the bartenders. Torque isn't happy with the sight. Well, this isn't what we agreed on, Matt. Care to explain? We had to improvise. Things got complicated. We had to improvise. Pleasure to make your acquaintance. I believe Matt told you already why I'm here? Not in any detail, and the circumstances of our meetings were supposed to be different. So, Miss Langley, tell me why I shouldn't ask you to leave and kick out your protégé while I'm at it. You will like what I have to say. Yeah, I've heard that line 100 times, but 99 of those ended with somebody getting hurt, and that's not something I'm in the mood for tonight. We are wasting time. There is a unique opportunity we should take advantage of, but we only have an hour or so to discuss it before it will be time to act. My driver is waiting outside. Wait a goddamn minute. First of all, I'm not going anywhere without Mia. That was the deal. Second, it's Matt who is supposed to do the driving and not your servant. Both serve me, so it's of little difference. The circumstances have changed and we had to adapt. Don't be stubborn. Foolishness that does not suit you. I have a secure spot in mind where we can talk. I'll stop you right there. Torque is seething, but he's keeping a lid on his anger. His voice barely changes. My conditions were clear. The way I hear it, you want to break each one of them. I see no reason at all to agree to any of this. I believe I will be staying put tonight. You have places to be, yes? Torque, you are throwing away the only chance you have at challenging Callahan. Don't be a fool. The lid comes off. Call me a fool one more time, woman, and that's not the only thing that I'm going to be throwing. Well, to be honest, I feel like he is right. She is literally breaking every last one of his conditions, so it's quite a tall order for her to ask him to trust her after something like that. But to be honest, I don't care. Like, I've had this problem for a long time, that I don't care about any of this. I don't care about any of those characters. But I feel like if anyone is right here, it's him. He has much more of an argument than she has, in my eyes. Torque's right. This does sound like a setup. I wouldn't trust you either in this situation. You dare. She slaps you fast and hard. The sound reverberates in the mostly empty bar. Torque smiles. See, Matt? That's the cam in a nutshell. You obey them to the letter, or they put you in your place. It's Sophie who's seething now. I don't have any more time for this charade. Fine, stay here. Both of you, if that is what you want to do. What was I thinking? Risking my reputation for you, Matt? Shots break the front windows, and the flashbang goes off in the room, changing the bar into a space with white light and ringing noise. Is it a second Inquisition raid, or is it Callahan? You feel somebody tugging at your back, and you are thrown behind the bar. More shots ring out, bottles break, the TV shatters into pieces, and the wooden bar splinters. Your sight comes back, but you think you've gone deaf, because suddenly the room is silent. You see Torque beside you and Marty the bartender bleeding out on the floor. You look over the bar. Sophie is standing there. Her dress is partially tattered, a visible hole in her leg. She is like the heart of a supernova, entrancing, unavoidable, beautiful and terrifying. In the front of her are 8 operatives, looking like a private military force just standing there, paralyzed by Sophie's magnificence. Torque, you still there? Yeah. Would you kindly show your guests some hospitality? Sure thing. The Anarch is gone in a blink of an eye, and reappears next to one of the soldiers. The armor-clad operative's head disappears in a puff of blood and bone. The same thing happens to the second, the third. You hear the radios go off, and the other soldiers. The radios go off on the other soldiers' shoulders, a panicked voice pleading for them to wake up. The fourth head pops, the fifth. They finally realize what is happening, but it's too late. The sixth man is beheaded but what you now see is just Torque's bare-fisted punch. Torque stops by the seventh man, rips something off his neck, and bites down. Sophie walks over to the last man and has him kneel in front of her before biting as well. On your right, a man in full body armor emerged from the back door, raising his assault rifle. What the fuck? Says the second Inquisition soldier. Sure, disarm him. With a rush of speed, you take hold of the soldier's gun. He is too surprised to hold on to it. You turn it on him, and shout the first thing that comes to your mind. On the ground now. A combat knife crashes through the soldier's visor into his skull. You turn around. Torque is grinning. He mouths something under his breath. You can hear the exact words. Still got it. Langley? Sophie wipes her mouth of blood and looks at him. That meeting is still an item? Yes. I'll take it. Splendid. Torque walks behind the bar and checks on the bartender. You see the Anarch open his own wrist and feed blood to the wounded man. Drink it up, Marty. It'll make you feel better. Get the hell out of here and wait for Mia. She's coming and she will know what to do. Torque? Yeah, coming. Take the back door. Matt, come on. You slink back into an alley behind the bar, leaving 10 bodies and one grievously wounded ghoul behind. Nobody stops you from circling around the block and finding your way to Sophie's car. Gregory drives away casually, as if this was just another late-night drive, and not the crowning of a desperate, complicated evening. The sense of irony is just overwhelming. The place where Sophie brought Torque turns out to be the very same apartment in which you were embraced. The way she explains it, the vampire who owned it left the city a few years ago and gave away spare keys to a few trusted compatriots. It has been used sporadically since. Fancy. You like it? It always felt too modern for my tastes, but what's important is that it is secure. As long as nobody followed your car here, or the fledgling, trouble follows this one wherever they go. Even if that's the case, we have very little time to conduct our business here anyway, and we will be leaving soon, I hope, so let us begin. This better be worth all the trouble. Dealing with Kaiser, then with Mia, getting picked up by... I assure you it will. You realize that if you finish that sentence, Torque would probably tear you a new one. Literally, most likely. Well, to be honest, I'm kind of done with all of them. I don't care about anything they do, and I don't care about any of those characters, which makes everything that happens kind of pointless. For me, I have it on good authority that Boss Callahan is bloodbound to Prince Bernard. Torque sucks air in loudly. That's an accusation and a half there, Langley. Got proof? No, but we're just a boat ride away from getting it. What is that supposed to mean? Matt, the address I procured from Kaiser was the meeting spot for Bernard's and the Baron's regular sharing of blood and other bodily fluids, if the rumors are true. Well, actually, they don't have other bodily fluids. Like, even if they were having sex, they would still be exchanging blood, albeit in a bit of an indirect way. Because obviously there's nothing left in a vampire's body aside from blood. Like, they don't produce semen, or they can't self-lubricate or anything. They cannot sweat. Like, they sweat blood, they cry blood, and I assume if they cared enough to make their genitals function, they would ejaculate blood as well, if they were a man. But I guess it was a pun. I get that. I'm just a bit more literal than she is, I guess. Wait, Kaiser knew about this? Is there anything that insufferable clump of dead skin doesn't know in this city? He knows things, but he only shares them if you pay. Neither the prince nor Callahan can touch him. He's too useful. Kaiser said saving me was in his interest. Kaiser said something about having plans for me. Then he wanted me to make this meeting happen. This can't be good, right? That is an interesting point. I think that Kaiser might be interested in shaking up the status quo, as we are. A chaotic landscape makes for a great market for him, unlike a static one. I don't like playing into those creeps' hands, but at least now I know I'm doing it. The devil you know and all that. What was the address he gave you? They meet regularly on Ellis Island. In fact, their next scheduled meeting starts in just around half an hour. Oh damn. I'm guessing you want to crash that meeting. Why? So you can see the proof for yourself. so that I can make sure too, and so that I have an extra pair of eyes for Panard to consider when I present to her my ultimatum. The prince must abandon her seat and leave New York City. She can go wherever she pleases, but if she stays, the entire court will know, and the next prince might not look favorably on her past. Dealing with Anarchs, especially so closely, is a punishable offense in the Camarilla, as I'm sure you have heard. So I did. So does she want to take Panard's place as the prince? I guess that would be the logical conclusion of this whole plot. Torque strokes his beard and looks intently at Sophie. What exactly are you trying to accomplish here? Say you remove Panard, and I even remove Callahan. Then what? Torque, did you ever wonder why Callahan is keeping you in check? Because I wondered why the prince condemns Anarchs during her visits to the Elysium, but doesn't allow the Ivory Tower to challenge you. She, or they, have engineered the status quo, not for the good of their sects, but for their private gain. They kept us all in line because it lets them hold on to power that much longer. And your goal is? Make this Cold War turn hot? Not a great plan. You Camis will get your butt kicked out of New York City in no time. If you Anarchs manage to organize, which I doubt you will. At any rate, it's a risk I'm willing to take. I don't stand alone in this. This entire operation has been years in the making. Torque, I am offering a chance to square things with Callahan and level the playing field. If we get rid of these two, we can start on equal footing at the next stage of this dance macabre. Well, to be honest, yeah, that's kind of a valid point, I guess. Although I guess it doesn't really matter for them, right? Because what matters for them is that they would be the ones in charge in their respective sects, right? So even if it's just copying the status quo, it's still more beneficial to them than the current one. But still, wait, isn't this copying the same status quo you're hoping to break? Just another Camarilla Anarch agreement to replace the current one? Well, for one, I don't expect to sleep with Torque to seal the deal. Fair enough, and if I understand your intention, this is just an alliance of convenience, a ceasefire for the common benefit, and not a lasting peace treaty. Did I get that right? Exactly. So you see, Matt, it's nothing like the current agreement. It's quite the opposite, wiping the slate clean. You know, after all those years spent even in Callahan's shadow and taking part in all of the kindred dick-measuring contests, I should expect a ruse, some ploy to kill me in an out-of-the-way place. That's our inherent paranoia talking. My gut tells me that it's the time to get this show started. Well, to be honest, I feel like he might have a point, because what's stopping her? Why does she need him specifically? Is it because of manpower? Is she afraid she can't take Panard and Callahan at the same time? Because it seems to me if she get rid of Panard, killed Callahan, and then killed Torque as well, she would have taken control of the Camarilla and crippled the Anarchs at the same time. I do hope you have a boat nearby, Langley. Sophie smiles mischievously. Of course I do. It's waiting for us by the pier. Lead the way then. Moonlight's burning. The three of you leave the apartment and walk towards the pier. No one seems to be following you. You get onto a small patrol boat and double time it through Hudson's cold, dark waters. Out of all of the places in New York City where the Prince and the Baron could meet, it's Ellis Island, a landmark with a dark past, a museum on one hand, a dilapidated piece of history on the other. You leave the boat and make your way to the southern part of the island, paying no heed to the renovated tourist attractions on the northern side. You expected some resistance, a night guard, a helicopter flying overhead, or maybe an NYPD patrol boat. Nothing. The island seems completely deserted. It's clear that this sets Sophie on edge. She's moving as quietly, as subtly as ever, but you can see that she's eager to reach the particular house her intel pointed out. Torque is following suit, grimly determined, flashing his piercing gaze all over, still clearly uncertain that this isn't some kind of a con. Finally you see it, lights coming from a window in one of the buildings at the edge of the island. The three of you slowly creep closer to the building and take a look inside the window. There it is, Callahan, kneeling in front of the prince, sucking on Penard's wrist, both fully clothed. A small blessing. Torque makes his move, and before Sophie can stop him, he busts through the building's doors. It all happens very quickly. Torque grabs Callahan by the shoulder and throws him through the still open door. Callahan hits the ground hard. Torque appears on top of him and starts punching. "You fucker, you piece of shit. Stop." The prince's voice takes hold for just long enough to make Torque relent, which the Baron uses to the fullest. He shoves Torque off himself and tries to bite down. "Prince, call off your lapdog." "Langley, what is the meaning of this?" The two Anarchs break apart, both wounded, but neither quite done yet. They look at one another with pure hatred. "Kill the bitch, Helene, and leave this fledgling to me. Right after I deal with this shit stain, I'm going..." A shrill, unpleasant laugh fills the air. You know who it belongs to. Is it Kaiser? Oh, no, it's this guy. To be honest, I kind of forgot he existed. I think I only saw him like 2 times. So entertaining. Truly, it feels almost a shame to break up this spectacle, but alas. "Thomas? Who the fuck is this joker?" "Ah yes, I don't think we've met, though I did hear a lot about you, Mr. Torque. My name is Thomas Arturo, and I..." Callahan uses this moment of uncertainty to strike. He's still too slow for Torque, who throws the boss onto the lawn when the two exchange blows once again. "Helene, if you would be so kind as to ask your friend not to hurt our guest too much." "Callahan, don't kill him." This time Callahan comes out on top and grabs Torque in an iron hold. Your companion struggles, but can't quite break away. "I will not be denied, Helene. Not this time." "You will do as I command." "And she will do as I command her, Douglas, old boy." "What?" Like I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, I feel like I need to break up this little spectacle. It's been going on for far too long. "You think you are so smart, Langley, you and your clique. Figured out there was something fishy going on. All on your own, but you were always working with just a piece of the puzzle." "Wasn't she, Matt?" Sophie looks to you, shocked and disappointed. "Well, to be honest, I do not know what he's talking about. It seems to me he's trying to implicate me because it creates more chaos, right? If she thinks she can trust me, or if she thinks I was working with him, it sort of makes her own position crumble just a little bit more. I don't know what he's talking about, and in fact, I really don't. What are you talking about, Arturo?" What I am talking about, you ask? You fledgling. You don't know, how could you? Only I knew. And your sire, of course. They are the one who agreed to embrace you after some negotiations. You hear a scream and a curse. It's Callahan, whose arm has been nearly ripped off his body. Torque breaks out the Baron's grasp, but doesn't continue the attack. Instead, he's at the edge of the water, in the blink of an eye, and disappears into the Hudson. The only trace left of him is his fedora. Leave him. Why can't you just trust the actors to play their roles? No matter, a problem for another night. He'll reach his allies, he'll tell everyone of this. Let him, and why not? Nobody will believe him. Besides, his days are numbered, and now that he is in the SI's sight. Sophie looks at you. How could you? I saved you. Arturo suddenly appears next to her and slaps her in the face. Did you hear anything I said, Langley? Nothing? It's not them. It's me. Me. Thomas, what? No, shut up. I am talking now. You've played this game all wrong. You were playing on one board, but you are just a pawn on another bigger board, you see? You never realized that people on the top simply flip the chessboard over and punch you in the face whenever they don't like how the game is going. He motions to the remaining kindred. But the thing is, you weren't even adept at playing the game you knew. Matt, just another pawn, placed on the board by my associate. You thought they were your piece since you took them in, but who gave you that idea? You returned to the night you were judged by Prince Bernard. The woman in red, Sophie, someone speaking to her, a man in glasses, the man standing before you now. This is cruel. We know what's going to happen. If only somebody would speak up for the poor child. They could be a useful tool for the Camarilla. Terror creeps onto Sophie's face. Of course, those were not the words you heard, were they? No. You were already grasping for some opportunity to further your scheme. I put the bait out and you took it, hook, line and sinker. After that, it was only a matter of time before you started using Matt as your errand boy. No one is quite as easy to track and monitor as a naive fledgling who's just learning the ropes. What is it that you want, Thomas? What do I want? Oh boy, the answer is so simple, but yet so hard to put into words. Unstable stability, cutting-edge tales of thrills and intrigue that push it to the limit, and then return you to the tried and true status quo, gently and infallibly. A system full of distractingly moving parts which simulate conflict so convincingly that its users never feel a need to direct their energy towards upsetting the system. Achieving the eternal through the disposable, building a city that's like a ship of Theseus, constantly changing its parts, yet always maintaining the same purpose, serving the same goal at all times. A large-scale infrastructure that has something like an exhaust system for the spirit, something that disperses the toxicity around instead of concentrating it in a single place. None of that of what you're saying makes the slightest bit of sense. Yeah, I'm kind of with her on that. I feel like he hasn't told us anything concrete. It's a whole lot of pseudo-philosophical, vague bullshit. Arturo is momentarily stopped in his tracks. He stares into the skies for a few seconds before a sad grin appears on his face. Spoken like someone who has really never had what it takes to make it in the big leagues. With a theatrical snap of the fingers, he gives his last sentence a sense of finality. Something has changed in the air. A woman's shape slinks behind Sophie's back. Goodbye, Sophie. A person appears behind Sophie. You can't believe your eyes. It's Adelaide Davis holding garden shears in her hands. To be honest, the problem with this situation and this whole game is that I don't care. Like, if she dies, then I won't be sad, I won't feel guilty, I don't care about her as a character. But I guess I should at least, perform some general gesture of some attempt at avoiding her death. Maybe it will work, maybe it will not. To be honest, as I said, I don't care. But sure. You take off and rush towards Sophie. You only take a few steps before a figure blinks right next to you and pushes you away. Arturo. Well, so I guess she's done then. Yeah, you hear the shears snip. Sophie's red hair conceals her face as her red head falls, separated from her shoulders. Silence. Arturo's unpleasant laughter erupts right next to you. Oh, Matt, your career is moving at a breakneck pace, moving up and up and up. Let me congratulate you on your promotion. What do you want from me? I was about to get to that. Hélène, Feel free to leave us and take the Baron with you. Thomas, I don't think you should. Shush, you're just being jealous. Adelaide, escort the prince and our dear old Douglas, please. Sure thing, darling. You are left alone next to Sophie's body. Try not to look, but it's hard to ignore her lithe frame decomposing in front of your eyes. The red dress is like a cloth thrown over a mummified corpse. Congratulations, you've won this little game. You set out on a suicide mission and successfully brought down the power-hungry wannabe tyrant, even if it probably wasn't the way you imagined it. Now you are free to enjoy paradise again, life and death, immortality, eternal youth. What they don't tell you is, of course, that living in paradise is inherently sinful when not everyone can partake. But you have time to learn how to live with sin, don't you? He takes a melancholic look at the city skyline surrounding him, the Statue of Liberty and the lights of Manhattan shimmering in the distance. You know, New York has taught me to believe in fate. My unlife began right here, and it began with utter despair. My first instinct was to drown myself in books and keep reading and reading until literature gave me the piece of wisdom I needed to go on. Personally, I find reading a silly hobby in retrospect. I always had the minuscule hope that the next sentence I'd read would finally bring me salvation, but it never did. It only gave me fuel for this elevated, righteous, intellectual suffering. But the more I read, the easier it was for me to boil every paragraph down to a power relationship, the characters' influence over each other, the writer trying to impress the reader, etc. The strings everyone pulls started to look like strands that weave into a fabric of fate, and once I saw its beauty, I got teary-eyed. My architect instincts kicked into overdrive. I didn't have to submit to fate. All I had to do was cooperate with it and wait for my time to shine, give it my input whenever needed until it trusted me to do more. Thomas steps over what is left of Sophie, wiping his glasses with an elegant cloth from his pocket. And it did. Fate let me look after this city, and with my architect's tools, I started quietly shaping the streets and corridors, while Kaiser and his ilk shaped the information flow. And among many tools that this process gave me, one of them was a way to reliably come up with useful agents like you. The methods I used were crude at times, but the route was still there, and all you had to do was follow it. Some people write rulebook passages, others plan city arteries. In the end, the effect is the same. Someone always follows. He puts on the glasses and gives you a long, hard look. I've grown fond of you. You've done so well. Even when that idiot Callahan tipped off the Second Inquisition, you still escaped. I like that kind of resourcefulness. I could use that kind of resourcefulness. He uncovers his wrists. So, take my blood. Just enough so that we can start off at the right foot, as a sign of good faith, a sign that you are ready to play in the big leagues, ready to behold the sights I've prepared for you. So basically he wants me to become blood bonded to him, the way Callahan is blood bonded to Panard, right? Because it is a power tool, like it is a control tool, because it would endow him with a matter of influence over me. I wonder if I will even have a choice. To be honest, it doesn't seem like a situation in which I have a choice. What do you say, Matt? Well, what do I say? Oh. Well, I guess I don't say anything because the game just ends, unless there is like a post-credit scene. But I guess that was Vampire the Masquerade, Coteries of New York. Now, I have to say, overall, I find this game woefully mediocre. Like, it's so uninspired that it almost hurt me to play. Because to be honest, I didn't care for anything that happened. I didn't care for any of the characters. well, I guess I did care about Kadir a little. To me, he was one of the more interesting characters, but I didn't care for Sophie, for example. And when she got killed, I didn't. It wasn't something that was sad to me, or that was infuriating to me, or that I wanted revenge for, or anything. Like, I literally don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And to be honest, nothing that happened in the game really did matter. I did like Kadir a bit, and I would enjoyed more interaction with him, and I guess I was starting to kind of like D'Angelo, but again, this is another problem with the game. Besides the uninspired writing, in my opinion, I think it was badly structured as far as the pace of the story goes, because it didn't give me a clear indication of how much time do I have before the game sort of progresses in its main plot. So, and it didn't give me an indication of how how I should structure my choices so that I get the most of it, because I assumed that if the game was giving me the option to meet with all of them, then I can. But in the end, it turns out that, I never explored any of those side characters sort of in full, because I tried to go wide instead of going deep. But the problem is, for me, that the game didn't communicate it to me clearly enough that it wanted me to go deep in the first place. I thought that if I want to, I can just explore everything, and I couldn't. So in the end, it led to this peculiar ending where I didn't really complete any of the side characters' sort of quest lines. I never really finished the murder story with D'Angelo. I never really figured out what's Hope's deal with the multiple personalities, and I never really, I never really found out what happened to Agathon's friend from the Tremere Chantry. So I feel like the game was wrongly, like, it was a mistake to put it together in such a way, because it didn't give me enough of a warning, and it didn't give me enough of an advice in how I was supposed to structure my approach. And I don't think, like, sure, you can say that the game gave me a choice and I just chose wrong, but I feel like it's the game's responsibility, it's the developer's responsibility to shape the game in such a way that you always uncover something, that you always discover something, that you always you always get something tangible, some kind of tangible narrative reward, as it were, by following a certain thread. And instead, the game was structured in such a way that it allowed me to pursue all of the threads simultaneously, but in the end, it progressed the main story without letting me know, far enough in advance, so that all of the threads were left dangling in the end. I didn't follow any of them to its completion, and it's not because I didn't want to. It's because, in fact, it's the exact opposite. It's because I wanted to follow them all, and the game didn't really explain to me that is not something I should expect. That's not something that's possible. It feels to me that it would be better if the game sort of strongly suggested to you, for example, that you should concentrate on like one or two of those companions and just, continue doing their side missions and maybe leave the other ones for a next playthrough or something. But it didn't really, it didn't really address that. It didn't really inform me about that. So in the end, I feel like I missed a lot of content, but not for the lack of interest, but in fact, due to the totally opposite sort of overabundance of interest, because I was interested in everything, and the game didn't make it clear enough that I cannot, that I cannot see everything. So I feel like that's kind of a fault of the game. But overall, this wasn't good. Like, I didn't like it. I feel like none of my choices really mattered. None of my choices changed anything. But most importantly, I feel like most of the characters were really boring, and I didn't care about what happens to them. And it's like one of the worst things you can say about a story. If you don't care about what happens to the characters, then what point is there even in playing or in reading? Like, you know, the choices, even if they did change something, which I never felt like they did, but even if they did, then I didn't care that much, because Sophie was no one to me. And pretty much, as I said, everyone else, like, I only kind of cared about Kadir. I kind of liked him and wanted to interact more with him. And I guess I started to like D'Angelo a little bit, but as I said also, I never finished his side quest, his sort of plotline, because of the way the game was structured. So overall, I would say this was a bit of a waste of time. It might be a good introduction to the setting of Vampire the Masquerade if you're a newcomer, but to be honest, even then, I would say Bloodlines was like 12,000 times more enjoyable to play than this. And in fact, I would probably enjoy replaying Bloodlines for like the 12th time than I would playing this for the first time. So overall, I am kind of disappointed, but oh well, I couldn't have known that until I tried. I still have the Shadows of New York, because I bought a bundle, and to be honest, on one hand, I kind of don't want to play it, because I found this one so underwhelming, but on the other, maybe they learned on their mistakes, and maybe the other one is more interesting, and I have this weird borderline OCD thing, where I really don't like not finishing games that I bought. Like, I feel like having bought it, I have like an obligation to myself to actually finish it, to get my money's worth, as it were. So I haven't decided yet. Maybe I will play it, and maybe I won't. We'll see. It would be pretty difficult to make it worse than this one, and less enjoyable than this one. So maybe it will actually be more interesting. Who knows? If I will play it, it will be on the channel as well. And if I don't, then I guess I don't. That's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.